Now, recently you saw what it takes for a Division I athlete to stay at the top of his game in terms of needing a game plan, strategies, dedication, and hard work. And the same goes with chastity. We've just told you about why to live chastity, but it's not really helpful unless you know how to practice the virtue of chastity. So we want to give you kind of a game plan of 10 different strategies to start off with. First point I would say is that chastity doesn't really begin in your life until you realize how incapable you are of practicing the virtue on your own. We can't just do this by ourselves. We need to rely on the grace of God. And so we've got to have an interior life of prayer. The branches need to stay united to the vine, and likewise we need to stay united to Jesus Christ. And so during moments of temptation, don't just see that as opportunities for sin. This is a time I could be tempted and fall from God. These are opportunities for virtue too. During these times, turn your heart to God. Ask Him, help me, heal me, untwist my desires, teach me how to properly love. You could turn your heart to your guardian angel at that moment. Help me during this time of temptation. So first and foremost is your prayer life. Secondly, I would say, find good friends. You'll become like the people you hang out with. Whether they're virtuous or full of vices, you become like them. Because if you hang out with a bad group of friends, you'll always be comparing yourselves to them. Well, I'm not as bad as that person. And you think you're pretty good. But when you start to hang out with people of virtue, you realize you got a ways to go. And so, guys, hang out with other men that know that manhood is not about getting a little bit from a bunch of girls. Manhood is about learning how to love one woman well. And so this is point number 2. Third thing I would say is just take your time when it comes to relationships. We get burned so often by rushing too fast into relationships, especially girls. I mean, the girl meets a guy, oh, you're cute, you know, he's fun, he smells nice, let's date. And you jump in. And then you start texting and flirting and making out, and then 2 weeks later, that girl says, whoa, I didn't know he flirts with other girls. I didn't know he drinks so much. I didn't know he looks at porn. I didn't know he builds a methamphetamine lab in his closet with his friends after school. I didn't know that. It's like, well, honey, that's the point of taking your time. Get to know yourself before you run out to try to find a soulmate. Which is point number 4 to avoid, is only date someone if you can really see yourself marrying them. That's the whole purpose of dating. If you cannot see yourself marrying a person, you have no business dating them in the first place. And don't do missionary dating. Dating someone hoping you can fix them and convert them and rescue them and change them. No. And don't even date someone who just tolerates your morality. Well, if that's what you want to do, I respect that. No, you want to date someone who shares your faith, who shares your morality. Because trust me, it is difficult enough to practice chastity. When you're dating someone who is on board with that virtue, it becomes all the more difficult if we're dating someone who simply agrees with us. You know, I'll respect that, but deep down, they don't share that passion. Point number 5, avoid tempting situations. Don't go over her house at 9:30 at night to watch a movie until 11 o'clock while her parents are asleep and you guys are on the couch by yourselves. I mean, trust me, you're not going to be praying a rosary after the movie's done. You'll be doing something else. You've got to be able to avoid those tempting situations before they even happen. I'd say point number 6 is don't even ask yourself, well, how far is too far, before I commit a really bad sin. It's the wrong mentality. Imagine if I had that mentality in my own marriage. Now, let's see how much of a jerk I can be to my wife before we actually have to get divorced. Now, how far can I go to push this marriage before it's going to end in a separation? If that was my mentality toward my wife, it'd be pretty obvious I have a pretty unhealthy relationship. Same goes with God. We shouldn't be asking how far can we go and still technically not go to hell. We need to start asking how close can I get to the God who loves me above anything else? And if you want to know the standard, you can find it in John's writing in the New Testament. He said, therefore, we should make ourselves pure even as He is pure. Meaning that we're being called to be as pure as the most blessed Trinity. And you might think, well, isn't that kind of unrealistic? But understand, purity increases our capacity to love. Imagine you being like a pane of glass, and the cleaner that piece of glass is, the more easily the light will shine through it. And in the same way, the cleaner our hearts are, the more able we are to love other people, because God's love can come through us to them. Have you ever thought that God actually wants to love your girlfriend through you? That your God actually wants to love your family, the poor people, the unborn and the homeless. He wants to love them through you. And the more clean our hearts are, the more perfectly we'll be able to love these people. Now, point number 7 I would say is try to keep your thoughts clean and your heart clean. In the Gospels, the Lord says that if you so much as look at a woman with lust, you commit adultery with her in your heart. And we shouldn't be afraid that these words condemn us. No, these words have power to set us free because Christ is obsessed with the heart. Because whoever wins the heart, whether it be Christ or the devil, wins the whole person. Whoever wins the heart is going to win the eyes. They're going to win the speech, wins the imagination, wins the whole body and the soul for all eternity. So whether it be Jesus or the devil, whoever wins the heart gets the whole thing. And Christ's desire is not to kill our sexual desires, it's to perfect them and it's to set them ablaze. And by making Christ the king of our hearts, we're going to be more able to love people perfectly. Point number 8 is make your lives intensely Eucharistic. Never leave the Mass. Go often to Eucharistic adoration. One saint said that after having received the Eucharist and leaving the Mass, we become as terrible to the devil as fire-breathing lions. There's power in the most blessed sacrament. There's nothing more powerful. So make your life intensely Eucharistic. Point number 9, when you fall down, get up. Go to the sacrament of reconciliation often, at least once a month. And it's not just to get the guilt of the sin taken away from you. Do you know how many graces you receive through the sacrament of reconciliation to avoid those sins in the future? Point number 10, realize chastity is possible. It's not this oppressive burden that God is trying to dump on us. John Paul II said, chastity is the sure way to happiness, and only the chaste man and the chaste woman are capable of love. And if you think, well, I mean, it's so difficult, it's so hard. I mean, really, we cause probably 90% of our own temptations by the decisions that we make. We can make it easier on ourselves. And if you do think chastity is so hard, take a good look at the lives of the unchaste. Look at what they're dealing with tonight. You know, am I pregnant? Is my mom gonna find out? Oh, I feel so guilty. Did that guy just use me? Or what about this? Do I have a disease? You look at the sufferings of the unchaste, and it's really not much compared to what we have to struggle with. And the church has given us so many marvelous examples of heroic virtue, of purity. We've got St. Maria Goretti, of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, of St. Thomas Aquinas. There's so many examples that we can look up to grow in purity and heart. And although it is difficult, you get this benefit that Christ promised. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Not just in heaven one day, but are going to see him on others now on earth. And so the whole point of purity, it's not about killing all your desires, it's about acknowledging their strength and begging God to have the strength to love as he loves. And if we do this, then I really believe that God is going to be able to shine his own love through us and stick with it, because I promise that peace and the joy of chastity is worth more than all of the pleasures in the world.